introduced herself. But Jem is an ambassador from Elkstream Ranch. And Jem, how long have you been an ambassador for?
Um, gosh, maybe 8 years.
Okay, but since the Weber fire, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. So you kind of have an interesting perspective on this fire, having been evacuated 2 times now, living in the same place. And so I'm just hoping to ask you a number of questions, kind of have a conversation about your experience of the East Canyon fire leading up to evacuation, maybe some lessons learned. And let's kind of get started here. So I was just wondering if you can give us a bit of kind of an overview. Could you just describe the sequence of events leading up to the fire, kind of up to the point of evacuation, just to kind of set the scene for us a little bit, and then we can go from
Sure.
there. Yeah.
So we were gone for 2 weeks before the night. We came home Saturday night, the night before the fire, late. Then Steve, my husband and I went out back. That we got up early and we're like, we need to cut all the grass down in the back because it was getting kind of tall, and we'd already done the whole front of the property. And so we spent a couple hours out there that morning, clearing. I mean, just basically using our DR mower. And I came in and took a shower. We had something to eat. I took a shower, and then I get a phone call from a girlfriend that lives over by Jackson Lake, and she said, "I see smoke." She goes, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "I see smoke coming from it looks like your way." And I'm like, "What?" And I look out my bathroom window, and sure enough, there's a plume of smoke right out the backyard where we had been working for 3 hours that morning. And my husband was out in the front because he was putting up the electric fence for cattle. And I yelled fire to him, attach hoses. I immediately went back, called 911, made sure they had gate codes, and then went to my evacuation list that's on the garage door and started working from that list down in priority order. And while I was doing that list, I started calling neighbors. And then as I called neighbors, I assigned neighbors to call their neighbors to save time, because there was no evacuation. But literally within 5 minutes, we saw flames behind the house. So I wasn't waiting for Nixle to tell me to evacuate. And even one of our neighbors that lived way down south said they were in Cortez golfing, and they said, "Do I have to come home now?" And I said, "Yes, there is going to be an evacuation, I guarantee you." And then I said, "Where's your dog? Is your house open?" Because I knew they had a dog. I'm like, "I'm gonna go get your dog right now," because literally within that first 5 minutes, we already had done everything we needed to do, just about. I mean, my husband did all the outside stuff, turning off propane, taking, furniture pads off, moving propane bottles, grills away from the house, attached hoses. And so I left in the Jeep and went and got her dog and came back. And the time I came back, we had already had our car loaded and everything we needed to do. And the Nixle alert came in as I was coming back up the driveway. So we were already ready to go. And I just ended up calling back some neighbors that had livestock if they needed any help, and offered to help, but they all had help. And then we all went to our meeting spot.
So I guess my first question, kind of follow up on that. So did you have any issues? I mean, it sounded like you had a pretty extensive phone tree, but did you have any issues contacting neighbors? Were there any concerns about folks like that, or?
No, there was only one neighbor that I could not contact, and they were not home though at the time. But he ended up I left him a message, and he ended up calling back. But I did not make contact with them for about 40 minutes. But everybody else, as we went down the phone tree, if they had not called their next door neighbor, they either said, I'm calling them, or, they already called us and they're already packing up. I mean, everybody was very quick.
And when had you developed that phone tree or implemented that?
Well, we set up our CWPP, back in 2008 originally, but we've had a lot of new owners come in, and when new owners come in, we talk to them about fire preparedness and what we do. And we had a evacuation drill a year ago, last spring, I believe it was. Everybody in our canyon, granted, we're kind of a small community. There's only 15 homes in our canyon, and only, let's see, is there 9 full-time people? And we're all very close. So it was very easy to, text, call. It was very, we were very well connected. I'll say that.
Great. Okay. So then it sounds like basically you had already implemented most of the evacuation before you even got the Nixle alert. So I'm curious what happened after that. Where was your evacuation location, and how did you start to kind of interface with officials and fire personnel? So kind of.
Our location is the Firehouse / Minkus Brewery parking lot, depending how busy the Firehouse parking lot is. And we all went over there and registered, and I introduced myself as an ambassador, and started giving them information about how many homes are in the canyon, and who was contacted and who wasn't. And
Great. I'm curious, were there any concerns about horses or livestock in the canyon?
No, actually, everyone that had livestock had so much help. There were so many volunteers that called immediately, and nobody needed any further assistance. I mean, everybody was taken care of. Yeah.
Excellent. And when you say volunteers, what kind of volunteers do you mean?
Oh, I mean, just volunteers of the people who had homes with livestock. I mean, they had people, they reached out and they immediately had help. During the
Like
Weber fire.
friends.
Yeah, friends. It was all friends. Yep. Everyone just pitched in to help each other.
Great. And then so I'm curious.
And people with livestock, I'll just mention, they already knew to go to the county fairgrounds.
Great. So I'm curious, after you were evacuated, were you able to just, did you stay with friends, or how did that work out? And going forward, my question is also about how you were able to stay up to date and stay kind of informed about, did you go to were there any kind of like daily briefings, or what were the lines of communication once you were evacuated?
We went, so we were hung out at the firehouse, pretty much. And I was sending out notices, but then Phil Walters, who, was an ambassador, he started putting out the updates. He's like, I'll do it, because he's, so used to it. And even though he wasn't living in the canyon anymore, their house is for sale now, but they live in town in Minkus. He just immediately started doing it. And he had the thread of everyone that owns property in our canyon on it. And he was awesome. Of course, everybody knows Phil Walters. He's very thorough and irreplaceable.
So, yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I said, I would have sent that out, but he immediately took over on that. So I just let him.
That's great. And so how long were you evacuated for, and when did you know that it was safe to go back, basically?
From the firehouse. The firehouse had everyone registered with at the Mancos Firehouse. So they put out notices of if you could come in for, a few minutes to grab anything you might have forgotten. They would send those out daily. If they would escort us in. And then when the evacuation was lifted, they sent out text messages to us because we were registered. And let's see, gosh, what were we evacuated for? 4 days. It was 4 or 5 days, but we were still on pre-evac notice for another week after that. Load my car or anything. I just kept everything status quo, and everyone just checked in on each other, and we were ready to go. We did have one homeowner who decided not to evacuate, and he woke up the next morning to firefighters cutting down trees on his property, and he went out there and asked, "Can I ask you to stop doing that?" And they said, "Sure you can, but we're not going to." He was a new owner that had just moved in about 7 months ago. 6 months before the fire. And so anyway, that was pretty funny.
Sounds like he got some fire mitigation work done.
Yeah, he did.
For free.
That's right.
So I guess I have a couple questions now, kind of wrapping it up and kind of putting it into perspective, especially now that we have a couple months have passed. Experience in scale, preparedness, kind of
Well, so we were not able, I don't know, to watch our canyon burn. I saw the pictures. And I'm like, I don't want to stand there. House is gone. I'm like, you're right. I guess we need to get our trip. So list and a chance to get anything, although
absolutely.
When we do leave, because we leave quite often for our jobs, we already we already had our house mitigated, and we always close all our windows up in case there's a fire anytime we leave or on our about their windows when they evacuate. That's on my fire on my garage door is to close all windows so that you don't have some damage in their house, and we didn't have any.
Right. But safe to say, in terms of differences between the Weber and the East Canyon, it sounds like you were a lot more prepared as a neighborhood, as two neighborhoods. Would you say that's a analysis?
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut out. What was the question?
I was just curious if you'd say the neighborhoods overall were more prepared this go around.
Oh, I think we were definitely more prepared this go around because one, we had more people living here, and we talk about it at our annual meeting, and we talk about mitigation, not just at our annual meeting, but at get-togethers, because we're all friends. And um, so definitely our canyon, no doubt, was better prepared this time. And so much more
Excellent.
mitigation has happened since the Weber fire.
Great. And now I kind of have a little two-parter. I'm curious if you can reflect on what went right about the evacuation this time, and maybe is there anything in your mind that could have gone smoother, or kind of lessons learned from the
Well, a
experience?
lot of the neighbors did not bring their grab and go bags. That was one thing that I was kind of surprised about when talking to my neighbors, and they're like, I didn't grab anything. And I'm like, what? Why didn't you grab anything? Like they just, some of them, I don't know, maybe panicked a little bit and they didn't have their list on their doors, you know? So I would stress to everybody that that is so important because it keeps you focused, is to have a checklist and put it on the door out to your car, you know, the nearest door, because you literally can just look at that list and go down and go, oh, you know, just go step by step in order of importance, and then you won't forget anything. So I did
Absolutely.
reprimand my neighbors that forgot their things. They won't
Yeah.
next time.
And, right. Right. Hopefully there won't be a round three.
Right.
Becca, yeah, Becca has a question about Elk Springs. For folks who don't know, the Elk Stream and Elk Springs are very close. They're just a couple feet away from each other. They're both in East Canyon, and I guess question is just generally about um, talking between the neighborhoods. I mean, there's an imaginary line where one neighborhood starts and different HOAs,
Yeah.
but yeah, was there any confusion between neighborhoods, or was everybody kind of on the same
No,
page?
I think Jeff Schaefer leads up. I thought Jeff was going to be on tonight. You know, I would, yeah, he leads up their ambassador program. I mean, he's the ambassador for Elk Springs, and um, you know, as far as I know, he said he contacted everybody, and it all went very smoothly. That they didn't even make everybody on the north side of Elk Springs evacuate. They weren't even ordered to evacuate because they were across the road up front, I guess.
Ah, okay, interesting. Yeah, so maybe Jeff wasn't evacuated because
No, Jeff, he left because he has horses and that. But no, up closer to the highway, they were not evacuated up there.
I see. Okay. Okay. Let's see, just maybe one or two more from me, and then we can start to open it up and see if anybody else has questions of things we missed. Um, I'm curious, going forward, and now that we've had some precipitation and we're heading towards the fall, supposedly, I'm curious if there are any concerns about erosion, about mud. What are the next steps for the neighborhoods in planning for those effects? What are your thoughts?
Well, fortunately, we were not very affected with the severe fire burn. Most of that was on the Cherry Creek side. So we were really lucky because after the Weber fire, we had many years of flooding. I mean, a good 2 to 3 years of erosion. And it cost us upwards of $150,000 as an association to repair our roads and put in drainage ditches and new culverts and such. So with this one, uh, there 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 isn't nothing burned in our community except on the high ridge where there are two homes and vegetation burned around that. But they had done so much mitigation up top that it didn't burn up like real close to their house, but you know, on the front side that faces Cherry Creek isn't going to affect those lots. So we don't,
Right.
the owners up on top where a lot of trees did burn in between their two homes, there's another lot. They want to do some like timber cutting this fall of some of those logs that burned. They're going to reach out to that homeowner and ask if they wouldn't mind if they did the cutting, because there's no home there and they're not a very involved property owner. And maybe we'll all bring our chainsaws up there and have a chainsaw party.
Sounds like a great idea. Okay, yeah, it sounds like Cherry Creek might be in a little bit of a different situation in terms of erosion.
Absolutely.
So maybe we'll have, it would be cool to have Charlie, the Plata County coordinator, maybe do something similar like this and hear, you know, what their story was and how it compares to you guys. And I think that would be another interesting comparison to make. Anyway, those are most of my questions. I hope I think we got a little bit of the arc of the story there for sure. And I definitely want to give everybody an opportunity to ask Jen some other questions. She's been kind enough to let everybody grill her some more. So yeah, open it up to questions.
Roy has a question.
Great. Go ahead, Roy.
Okay. I was just wondering, Jem, you mentioned about everybody that you had called, or many of them, responding to like your own evacuation point or a meeting place. What help, what benefit was that? I mean, that had been planned ahead of time just to
Yes.
try to account for everybody, or?
Yes. Yep. And then, you know, you have to register as an evacuee now, so that they can we got evacuation badges, and so you have to come in person to the firehouse to register and get your badge, and then they'll update you on, you know, what's going on with the fire and when you can get back to your home, and they give you a contact person.
I got the impression that you all had met before you went to the firehouse. That there was someplace within the subdivision.
Oh, no. That was our meeting place that we had done an evacuation drill the year before, and that was the meeting place, was to go to the firehouse. Or if parking was bad, to the brewery right next door, the parking lot.
Okay.
And so when I got there, I immediately was texting and calling, like, okay, are you coming? You know, because everyone got their evacuation notice and said they were going to meet, and we were missing some people. And so I texted, and some people said, oh, I'm going, you know, elsewhere, but, you know, I'm okay. And so I just made sure I checked in with all the homeowners after I got there.
Okay.
And then I informed the personnel at the firehouse where missing people were, that, you know, we're not here to register, but they're going to come later.
Okay.
Here.
Dan, looks like
So,
a question.
Jem, did they update you through text after you registered? And
yes.
Where did you stay? Did you camp at the firehouse?
No, everyone in our community had someplace to go. The Red Cross was there. They offered hotels, but every single person had a friend that offered a place. My friend Erica that called us, we went to her place. And it was kind of ironic because when the Weber fire happened, the first phone call I got about the fire, I was on the ground in Portland, Oregon, between a flight, and she called me and told me about the fire, you know, saw smoke in our canyon from the Weber fire. So when she called me again for the East Canyon fire, I was like, oh my gosh, no offense, but I don't want you to call me ever again. It was so weird that she called me both times, and she doesn't even live here. She lives by Jackson Lake. That was pretty funny.
What a coincidence.
I know. So only one person, actually one person took the Red Cross up for a hotel because they had a cat that was very skittish, but everyone else had other housing.
Great.
Jim, were the responders using your maps, your community maps over there?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
We were like, so we didn't have maps in Cherry Creek, and it was a totally different situation on the other side of the ridge.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we even gave them, when I got to the firehouse, I, showed them our website and the maps on the website too, and our CWPP. And so they went right to that.
Could you share that website?
Hmm?
Could
Oh,
you share
our
that?
website for our community?
Yeah.
Oh, elkspringranch.org.
Okay.
Any other questions out there? If you have a question, you can just go ahead and unmute and start talking because my screen's a little slow. I can't see your hand right away if you're raising it. So if there are any other questions, just go right ahead.
Well,
Ken,
how
are you,
tall is the oak? Oh, how tall is the oak now?
what? How tall is the oak? What? Wait, what do you mean? We don't have any, our oak is down to the ground.
Well, I saw
Oh, you mean on the burn side?
on the burn side. Yeah, I saw some
Yes,
pictures. Betty Butcher had been out there, and like 2 days later, there was already fresh oak sprouting.
Yeah.
So curious.
No, it's growing. The whole side is covered in oak. It's probably a good 6 feet, at least.
Back with
Maybe
a vengeance.
6 to 8 feet.
Probably 40% coverage,
Yeah,
40 to 50%.
it's like 50% covered where the burn was.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
had Maddie had sent pictures, and maybe I can find these stories in case folks haven't seen them and drop them in the chat with some pictures from up on the ridge in the burn area with stuff sprouting back already.
Oh yeah, I remember after the Weber fire, literally a month later, the oak was already coming up. It was already like 6 inches high. It's amazing. It likes that fertile burn soil.
Good erosion control now.
Better erosion control is cutting the logs down and stop it coming down the mountain. That's way better, laying those logs down quick.
Right.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I would also say that the quicker that folks can get in there and get those trees down, the safer, since we had a huge problem with the spring fire out there by La Vita off of I-25. And they're landowners, a lot of them are second landowners, and they, the land isn't worth as much. And so they just kind of walked away. And now it's very dangerous with timber falling. So if there's anybody that is having a hard time with that, we have our contractors list. It's great for fire mitigation, but also maybe some of them can come help out if enough neighbors can't get in there. But time is of the essence. You have a year or two to do that before it gets too hazardous. Yeah.
We will definitely be helping our neighbors up top.
That's awesome.
For
Great
sure.
job.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Ken, are you still on? Ken Sarabian, are you still on? I can't hear him. I was going to ask if he had anything to add.
Actually, I was wondering, Dina, I don't know if you're still on or if I wanted to put you on a spot, but I know that you were on this fire from the other side, not being evacuated, but those responding to it. So I didn't know if you had any lessons learned or something that you noticed in this fire compared to others you may have been on, or anything that might be helpful for our ambassadors.
Yeah, I'm still on. So I was doing public information and working with Pam Wilson, which I'm sure a lot of you guys know. So we started working kind of when the Type 3 team was initiated, probably the second day that they were actually out there. And then I worked with the type 2 team coming in. I guess the biggest question being that it's COVID, and we weren't able to have community meetings. So Jim, did you feel like you were getting enough fire information from
Absolutely.
the actual fire? Okay.
Yeah, I thought they did a fantastic job. They were great. I mean, they had the little kiosk set up that you could go check on. We had people who were evacuated with their animals at the fairgrounds, so they would get information and they would pass it on, you know, to us, and then I would spread it or Phil would spread it. We had excellent communication from the fire team. Excellent.
Great. Yeah, I mean, on our end, it was a little different than what we normally do. And it sounds like just nationwide, with all this going on, every fire is a little different, and how you can communicate with the public, and knowing that in some areas, people aren't connected. They might not have a smartphone and stuff like that. So just trying to get all the information out as best we could. And then I ended up being, oh, go ahead.
I said our whole neighborhood, when we talked post-fire, everybody was so impressed how well the communication was.
Great. That's great to hear. So, yeah, and then the side that I guess your neighborhood would have been on, I didn't really get down to that area, because you would have been on the closer to Main Coast side. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
But just talking to the firefighters that were over there, I'm not sure who they were in communication with, but it sounded like after the type 2 team left, and the type 3 team organization came back in, it sounded like they were in communication with a lot of the locals that were in the houses and stuff.
Yeah. And Sheriff Nolan was wonderful. I mean, he would answer any questions, because he was the one who had to make the decision if we were allowed back in, or I mean, if we could come in and get anything. There was, you know, again, some people, because they didn't have their grab and go, they needed medication or documents or whatnot, but he was excellent as well.
Great. Yeah,
Great.
that's all I have.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Dina. Well, we're just about at 6:30 now, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time and dinner. But before we go, I just want to give a great big thank you to Jem for sharing so much of her experience. And yeah, we all really appreciate it. And thanks for letting us ask you. I'm sure you've got all these questions before, so thanks for letting us ask you them again.
No problem.
And yeah. To everybody else, thank you also for joining. It's great to see your faces. I'll note that our next meeting is coming up on Tuesday, October 13th. Seems like it'll probably be a Zoom thing again, but if something changes somehow between now and then, I will let you know. Otherwise, have a great evening, everybody. Yeah, and until next time.
Becca has something to add there.
Oh, Becca has another. Yep, go ahead, Becca.
If you guys didn't see it in the chat, Montezuma County lifted their fire ban today. So just heads up, it's still super dry. That was trying to kind of be in line with what Forest Service and BLM are doing, but obviously down low, it's really dry. So that's going to need to come with a lot of communication from all of us to help people know that doesn't mean you should just go off and go out and light up anything.
I'm not going to tell anybody.
Yeah, that's probably not a
Because
bad idea.
I've been out hiking and it's crispy. It's crispy out there.
Awesome. Yeah.
And Alex, I'm going to send this to everybody. If you don't have it, it's a news release that came from the U.S. Forest Service on Friday. And it's something that you guys can pass along to folks. And it basically reminds folks about motorized travel being restricted to designated roads, pack it in, pack it out, abandoned campfires being dead out. And I just feel like we can't share that enough right now, especially with locals know it kind of, but then also with all the influx that we're getting, if you guys could help post this like near your mailboxes or grocery stores or wherever you think, I'll pass this along, as I thought there were some nice reminders.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been great, and we will see you next time in October.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Okay.
Nice job, Alex. Good job.
You're welcome. Everybody, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Signing off.